Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 2 in Psalms, season 30. We're looking at Psalm 23, the most famous psalm of all. We do a little bit more today. We tried yesterday to look simply at what God was doing in the 6 little verses of Psalm 23. And as always, we found God very, very busy. So today, we're going to ask kind of the flip question is, what is man doing in Psalm 23? What is our man? That is David, our representative, our chosen knucklehead, who happens to be a man after God's own heart, which is pretty cool. So in Acts 13, it describes David and kind of this is essential element of him. Verse 22, and when he had removed him, he's talking about Saul, he raised up David to be their king, of whom he testified and said, I have found in David, the son of Jesse, a man after my heart, who will do my will. So after his heart and will do my will. And this is kind of exactly what the Lord did not find in Saul. And he condemns Saul and says, your kingdom won't continue. And I'm continuing to look for a man after my own heart, which turns out to be David. So a good teaching point before we get started in Psalm 23 is that the Lord seeks men and women who are after his heart, that pursue his heart. And perhaps it's David's essential quality, this large heart that he has. It's frequently referenced as to what's inside David's heart and being a whole heart, not a divided heart. And then don't forget the second part of that, which is have the right heart, but also the willingness to obey. All right, so here we go. So what is David doing, and should we be doing the same things? I'll do it kind of verse by verse here. In Psalm 23, verse number 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So here we find David identifying in the Lord. He's content. Now, it's not a perfect situation. In fact, David is associating himself, the Lord, with being a shepherd, and me being wait for it, a sheep. It's very, very humble. And then verse 2, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. So there we see David cooperating with the Lord, and specifically cooperating in resting in what the Lord has for him. It says he makes me lie down, but David has a lot to say about that. David is still agent of himself. And then the other thing that's repeated in this psalm is David being led. He leads me beside still waters. So David is being led, and great men and great women of the Lord have a boss and are led. So let's not forget that. All right, verse number 3. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. He restores my soul. So a restoration is ultimately in him. Whether you have financial troubles or conflict with people, the point is, the big thing is being restored in him. He leads me in paths of righteousness. Then there we see it again. He's being led by the Lord. He's committing to the Lord, committing to follow the Lord, and doing it ultimately for his name's sake. And then verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So this is the difficult verse. Life is difficult, death is present, and here we find David walking, being led, being restored, being shepherded, being content. He's trying not to fear evil. He's setting his mind in a certain way because, why do we say I fear no evil? Because we have feared evil. So he's committing himself to it in the future. And then claiming and proclaiming, you are with me. He's replacing the bad with the good rather than evil. You are with me. It's your strength. And God's rod and staff are used. Where are they used primarily? So occasionally it's used against a bear or some external wolf or something like that. But primarily God's rod and staff are used amongst the flock. 99.9% of the time. Personal correction. I'm a sheep. I'm in the flock. God has a rod and a staff, and he's correcting me. So I'm comforted by this correction. You give it to me. The worst thing that can ever be said, that you could ever hear from the Lord, is that he gives you up. And what that means is he stops his protective, loving correction, this umbrella over the top of you. He basically says to you, if you want to go play in the street, you go right ahead, but you're going to face some consequences. Okay, verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy, and you anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. So again, we got enemies in the camp, that are not yet conquered, even though we could do so. And here we see the Lord's sovereignty, even despite difficulty. Yeah, I don't understand it totally well. Why is there disease, want, conflict, cursing? Well, someday we're going to live in a heaven where there are no more enemies, no hardened hearts, no want for anything but for more of Him. Remember Revelation 1:21, verse 4. There's going to be no unwiped tears, no death, no mourning, no crying, no pain. Or we can live in a place where enemies have gone from the presence. So we can either live with the Lord or we can live away from the Lord, where enemies have been banished from the presence. What is hell but separation? If heaven now and then is be with me, then hell is be without me. But for now, enemies have not been removed from the person and the people of God. And so being a follower of God, being a Christian for now, is to allow God to have enemies in your presence. And they're watching your interaction with God, probably evangelically. So are we doing the activities of David? Here, having our heads anointed with oil, watching our cups overflow, being pursued and followed by goodness and mercy, dwelling in the house of the Lord forever, and identifying with His ownership. So surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So don't forget, we're walking through the valley, we're walking through valleys, we're walking through shadows of death. And are we doing the activities of David in the meantime? Are we allowing are we allowing God to be sovereign like David did? Are we trusting Him that He's got this, even though there are death and enemies and valleys now? So meantime, let's be led. Let's keep walking. Let's be shepherded. Let's be corrected. Let's rest in Him. Let's be restored. Let's have our head anointed and be comforted, all while being witnessed. All this under the shadow of death. Yes, there's enemies, but the presence of the Lord is partially what we're showing them. So let's set our minds on fearlessness, on faith, on planting in His location and being led. So what would God find if you looked at your house, at your heart? So let what God has found be similar to what was found in the heart of David. May I have the mind of God to assess myself, my soul, my heart, and my behavior, and then do the activities of David. Thanks for listening.